that did hunt the hare. Farewell, you hounds that tired both horse and mare. Farewell, you gallant falconers, every one. The chief of all did live in Snitterton. So to conclude, both great and small, those that are left, the Lord preserve us all.
Well, that was Bella Hardy there, and we're standing together in the village of Edale on a cold winter's day. And my name's Jez Lowe, and my background is folk music and folk song, and that's what we'll be looking at today in this programme, specifically the folk songs of Northern England. Where is Northern England, you might ask? Well, we're going to try and find out with these folk songs. And Bella here, who I know has travelled all over the world with her music, but I believe this is home for you, Bella.
Yes, Edale is my home, and I have travelled with my music to play, and I've lived in a few other places. I went north and went to Scotland for a good few years, but I came home.
Well, it's certainly a beautiful place. It's my first time here, and we're surrounded, it's sort of like a valley surrounded by snow-covered hills, and but it is on a train line. There was a little rumble of a train going, I guess, from Sheffield to Manchester. Is that the line?
That is right. We're in the Hope Valley line, Sheffield to Manchester, and we can't quite see the top of the hills at the moment. They're just shrouded in this mist, aren't they? The white of the snow meeting the white of the clouds. It's one of those days.
And how much is your music, the songs you're saying, how much do they relate to the environment that we find ourselves in today?
I mean, enormously and endlessly. Place is incredibly important to music, especially folk music and traditional music. I've done lots of songs and music that are very much about this place. I had an album called The Dark Peak and the White. We're in the Dark Peak here, which is the Gritstone in the north of the Peak District, and the White Peak is the south of the Peak District, the Limestone. So I've done all sorts of research and singing the songs from this area directly. But even when I'm not doing that, even when I'm writing music that's a bit more singer-songwriter, or even sometimes a bit on the folky pop spectrum, it creeps up. You know, I've got one song, There's Nothing Keeping Me on Track except the tree upon my back, except the skyline in my heart. And it's, you know, this place is very much, it sticks into you and you can't get away.
And that song that you've just sung now, what's all that about? Is that a local song?
It is. That is the Elegy on the Peak of Derbyshire. It was written in the 1600s. It's one of those fantastic songs which in the book is about 30 verses long. But it was written for a time when we didn't have Netflix and other such things. And I love the fact it's about things will never be the same again and everything's changing and the old ways have died. And it's a song that proves that throughout the years there's been this feeling of fear of change, so we have to embrace it and write songs about it.
And today we're going to be attempting to climb up to the summit of Kinder Scout, which is looming above us to the left here. And it was, of course, the site of the famous 1932 mass trespass, which was celebrated in the Ewan MacColl song, The Manchester Rambler. Is that a song that you were aware of before, as a child yourself?
I was aware of it because it featured in probably every Edale pantomime through my childhood. I seem to remember it was I'm a Rambler, I'm a Gambler from Manchester Way, and it tended to be somebody swaggering in at the back of the village hall. It's something that is famous to this area and has been very important to ramblers and access rights and walking, you know, around the country. You might see some hares. I don't think they'll be white yet, but the mountain hares up there are lovely, and if this snow stays down long, they will be white quite soon, and that's a great thing to see.
Folk music and folk song has been a huge part of my life, and especially the songs and music from my own part of the world, the northeast of England. And it's the same thing that brings us here on what must be the coldest day of the year so far to the village of Edale. And it's a project that's been instigated by Johnny Campbell. Johnny, can you tell us why we're all here today?
Well, we're here just at the base of Kinder Scout, which is the highest point of Derbyshire, just over 2,000 feet. And we're going to climb pretty much to the summit to record a traditional Derbyshire folk song for an album that I'm doing, which is recording traditional folk songs of Northern England on their respective county high points.
So it's one instrument and a rucksack full of gear. I mean, it's quite an ordeal. Why do you feel it's so worthwhile to be doing this recording in this manner?
I think a lot of these songs were born from the landscape. I think like the song For Loom Weaver, which I did for Lancashire. You know, the mills, obviously, with the looms and everything around the Industrial Revolution. If it wasn't for the water from the hills that came down, you wouldn't have these songs. So a lot of our kind of like class history and a lot of our identity, I think, is intrinsically linked to the landscape.
So you've done several of these summits already and several of these songs so far?
That's right, yeah. The Cheviot in Northumberland, Gregareth in Lancashire, and a handful of others, especially Scafell Pike, which is the highest point in England, highest point of Cumbria. And taking a guitar up there walking up there is quite a feat in itself, but taking a guitar and a rucksack full of recording equipment is another one, I think.
It certainly is dedication, actually. It makes our jaunt today look like just a walk in the park, I think.
Yeah.
We shall see.
We're really at the start of the Pennine Way here, where it leaves the road. This is the original Pennine Way, invented by a chap called Tom Stevenson, who is a good friend of mine, and I actually walked part of the Pennine Way with Tom from here. It is the first of our long distance footpaths, 268 miles. People usually take a couple of weeks to do it, and most of it is now paved, actually, so it's a lot easier than it was when Tom came up with it. But he told me the reason he came up with the idea of the Pennine Way was to open up these beautiful moorlands that we can see in front of us, Kinder Scout, because at the time when he came up with the idea, they were still closed to walkers, believe it or not. So the people of Manchester and Sheffield could see these wonderful moors from their workplaces, from their homes, yet they couldn't walk on them. So that's how the mass trespass came about in 1932, when a group of about 400 ramblers came up from the other side of the hill, from Hayfield, and deliberately trespassed on Kinder Scout to exercise their right to roam. And we still celebrate that event 90 years later, and we're determined that people won't forget that moment. It took a long time, but eventually we had the right to roam on mountain and moorland with the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000.
We're here with Rowley Smith, a man who's known as Mr. Peak District. What drew you to this part of the world and this landscape that you now call home, Rowley?
I think it's the situation of these hills. It's the first real mountains you come to if you're coming from the south of England, is where I came from. It's an iconic mountain. It's just a mountain because it's 2,088 feet. That makes it, in British terms, a mountain. So the first time I came up here was when I was working in Coventry, actually, as a journalist, and it's within day trip distance from Coventry and indeed Birmingham, Manchester, Sheffield. And to my mind, it's the most important national park in Europe because of where it is, between these great industrial cities of Manchester, Sheffield, West Yorkshire, and the Birmingham conurbation.
Well, let's venture a bit further. Ironically, we're going down some steps before we actually start making the climb up. And let's see what's down here. I can hear water running somewhere.
Right, we're on what is known as the log bridge, which crosses the River Noe that flows through the valley of Edale. And it's known as a log bridge because originally it was a log that people used to have to walk across to get to the start of the Pennine Way and the climb up to Kinder.
There is an element of industry in this neck of the woods. I believe there was lead mining. Was that something that thrived at a particular time and then petered out?
The Peak District is divided into two distinct areas. What's known as the Dark Peak, where we are now, which is the Gritstone moorland area, and then there's the White Peak, which surrounds it on three sides. And in that limestone area, of course, you find lead. And there was a very thriving lead mining industry in the White Peak for many, many years. But the waste that the lead miners threw away, fluorspar, is now used for things like in toothpaste and in white lines on the road. That's still used. So it's still mineral extraction, but nowhere near as much as there used to be.
You've mentioned the White Peak and the Dark Peak. You have your own kind of attitude towards that.
In the Peak District, you're either a Dark Peak person, loving the moorland and the open country, or you're a White Peak person, which is the gentle, beautiful limestone dales. And there's a feminine aspect to the White Peak and a masculine aspect to the Dark Peak.
Well, we've left the valley behind. We're rising up now. We're in view of the peaks. We've also left behind the vivid blue sky that greeted us when we arrived here this morning. It's quite overcast now, and there's already snow underfoot. And we're hoping to reach the top of Kinder Scout, but the weather is always an element we have to take into consideration. So we shall see how we progress.
Well, we're now in Grindsbrook Meadows, and as you can see, the actual Pennine Way is paved at this stage. We're looking straight ahead towards the plateau of Kinder, and the rocks we can see dead ahead are called Nether Tor. And to our right, we've got a rock called Ringing Roger. It's a magnificent viewpoint. But these paving slabs are worth mentioning perhaps because they're all recycled from old cotton mills in places like Manchester. It's a good time to cross Kinder actually, because it's a one vast peat bog, and although most of it is paved now and you can get round the peat bog, you used to have to go right across the middle. And one of my favourite descriptions of it was by a writer called John Hillaby. He said it was like crossing a vast heap of dinosaur droppings, because it actually steams in the sun.
The mass trespass of 1932 is celebrated, of course, but it's also, there's another side of it, because some people say that it was a bit of an own goal, really, that it's caused more trouble than the gains that it made.
Without that trespass, the fact that these beautiful hillsides and fellsides that we're looking at now were barred from use from the general public. And it was a group of young communists actually from Manchester. 5 of them were arrested and actually put into prison for walking on the moors. Now that really struck a chord with me. And there was criticism. The official Ramblers Federation were totally opposed to it. But negotiations had been going on for something like 100 years and they hadn't got anywhere. All this country was once open country, common land, where you could graze your sheep, just walk for the enjoyment of it. But after the Enclosure Acts of the 18th, 19th century, it was all enclosed and parcelled off to the local landowners. That's where it all went wrong.
Rowley, we assume now that the whole right to roam thing is a fait accompli, but what is the current situation?
Well, the fight still goes on, Jez. We haven't got anywhere near the rights that our friends over in Europe have got, for example. They call it Allemansstrata in the Scandinavian countries. And even our cousins up in Scotland have got some magnificent rights to roam on the whole of the countryside, and there's been no problems there. So as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of us, the fight goes on. We want the same rights as our friends in Scotland and in Europe. These places are vitally important, and we've got to see that they're protected and open to all.
Soften my pillow. The heather has often just away. I get all my pleasure at one day, and maybe you'll wait say the Monday, but I am a free man on Sunday.
I'm Kate from Mishra.
I'm Ford, also from Mishra.
I'm Manon McCoy.
And that was a charming version of the very well-known Ewan MacColl song, The Manchester Rambler, which was inspired by the mass trespass of 1932. Whose idea was it for you guys to actually record this song, as you did?
Yeah, I kind of realised that 2022 was going to be the 90th anniversary of the mass trespass, and just thought, we love the Peak District, we love going for walks. It doesn't feel far away from music for us, you know, nature and being out in it.
So you actually recorded it, and I think videoed it too, up here on the actual scene of the crime, as it were.
That's right, yeah. I mean, that was probably the most enjoyable part of the video for us, was the scenery.
It wasn't far from here. We can literally sort of see the spot that we did it actually from where we're standing.
So Mishra is an amalgamation of musicians, but what is special about the Peak District to yourselves?
The peaks being so close, I can walk here from my door. It's just very important to come out and just have peace, I think, and that's what it provides.
Because it was all our first time leaving home and like developing a new relationship with a new place. So it feels like the first relationship with land that I chose to make, rather than where I was like born. It was like I chose to be here, and yeah, so it feels quite special to be still here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the song clearly mentions the landscape, and you can hear that Ewan MacColl loved this place when he wrote the song.
And why is it so important to you to do this song? Is it something that you think is relevant today? It's something that's still going on, this sort of right to roam, the fight for that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we don't have a right to roam in England. I think we can sort of walk over a very small amount of it. That's something that's quite close to our hearts. We'd like to see more of the countryside open for everyone to walk and enjoy and be out in nature.
And to play music. Like, we weren't allowed to play music on the hill. So, like, why not?
Someone said, no, that this is not a possible thing for you to do. Is that right?
We spoke to the National Trust about it. We told them that we wanted to do this. We thought maybe they'd like to share our video on their social media and stuff. And then they kind of said, well, we don't actually want you to do it on Kinder Scout.
They wanted to support it. They were like, that's a lovely idea. But no.
Ironic, really. The Ewan MacColl song itself is very well known. It's one of his first songs, and he, of course, became a very celebrated songwriter himself. It's obviously still relevant today. Did you change anything of the song, or did it just stand up as it always has done?
We're selective about what verses we chose, because I know there's a lot of really lovely verses in his version, but we just picked the ones that meant the most to us. So obviously the first verse is about all the places. Like,
mentions Kinder Scout.
Yeah, sunbathing, not in the icy day it is today.
I think it has a lot about belonging to the hills, at that line, and that feels really powerful to sing on the hill.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I should be. It's a really powerful line.
Yeah, it's
It
a
works.
special verse, that one, I think. It's like hit us hard, because we were like, oh yeah, I'll walk where I will, over mountain and hill, and I'll lie where the bracken is deep. Like, we've all done that, and we love that. That's what it's all about.
I'll walk where I will, over mountain and hill, and I'll lie where the bracken is deep. I belong to the mountains and the clear running fountains, the grey rocks lie ragged and steep. I've seen the white hair.
Johnny, the Manchester Rambler song, I guess we both know well. Amazing to actually hear it being sung out here on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just a really nice rendition, and I think we're all kind of thankful that it wasn't too windy or rainy or anything like that we could hear everything about it. So it was beautiful.
Yeah, and you yourself, of course, you've made an actual thing about recording out in the wilds on the peaks and stuff. What's the idea behind that? What attracts you to actually do that?
Well, partly I'm not so comfortable in a studio environment. It just feels a little bit false in a sense. And as a keen walker, there's nothing more kind of natural just to record outdoors, and just like listening to Manchester Ramble being played there. It's the perfect setting. It doesn't need to be in a studio.
Well, weather permitting, we're going to climb higher than where we are at the moment, right up to the top of the plateau of Kinderscout, where you'll be actually recording a song today. What's the song you're going to be doing, and can you tell us anything about that one?
The song itself would be the Derby Ram, which is a popular Derbyshire song. And Derbyshire is a bit of a, I find it a bit of an interesting county because, where we are, I think, is firmly Northern English. We can just look around us and it's the Dark Peak, which is Dark Hills. Today it's quite white because of the snow. But when you go a bit further down, the town of Derby is firmly Midlands. And on this national park, between the dark and the white peak, it's the dark and the light. Personally, I think this is firmly the border between the Midlands and the north, the white peak and the dark peak. And the song that I'd be doing, the Derby Ram, I wanted to do like a humorous song within the album, because northern people tend to be stereotypically quite dour, and I don't think that's true. So I think it's right to do a little bit of a humorous song for the album, which we'll be doing today.
So what came first for you? Was it the music or the walking, or did you is it something that's gone hand in hand, foot by foot?
I think probably the walking came first, and then getting into folk music later, and then kind of like marrying the two a bit later on, I think. So, it's quite symbiotic. See, it's not a bad path, is it?
I don't know if the air's getting thin up here.
Once we get to this summit, they call it the Kinder Edges.
Yeah.
That's about as high as you get. I'd say this mountain is probably unique in the sense that it doesn't really have a summit. The summit moves and it changes because the top is so flat. It's probably like a 15 square mile kind of summit. It kind of changes with the wind and rain and erosion. There will be a true summit, but it'll be different from what it was a couple of years ago.
So Johnny, here we are. This is the point that we've reached that you wanted. How does it feel to be on the verge of be doing this song at this particular point?
Well, this is going to be the first one with a little bit of snowfall. And the rest of them have been bright sunshine. It's just beautiful to be out in it, and hopefully we'll get it recorded in the next 5 minutes and go for a coffee shortly.
Great idea.
As I was going to Derby upon a market day, I spied the finest ram, sir, that was ever fed on hay. And indeed, sir, it's true, sir, I never was given to lie. If you'd have been to Derby, you'd have seen him the same as I. This tup was fat behind, sir, this tup was fat before. I reckon he must have been 10 foot high, that's if he weren't no more. And indeed, sir, it's true, sir, I never was given to lie. If you'd have been to Derby, you'd have seen him the same as I. The horns upon this ram, sir, they reached up to the moon. A lad went up in January.
Well done.
I think that's a take.
That's it.
I'm happy with that.
Just as well. Have you seen this?
I think I am.